Hey everyone, I hope you all are doing good and having a wonderful day. In this video, I'm going to talk about that how you can set up your own custom AI agent that's going to work locally on your machine using Light LM and a local large language model without relying on any frontier model available on the internet. That will help us to not only, do pen testing more effectively, but also it will help us to, reduce any unnecessary cost over spending on frontier models like cloud, GPT and all those things. And since everything is going to run on your local machine, the data will be secured as well, right? But before diving deep into this video, if you haven't checked out my previous video in which I have covered about an interesting broken access control mitigation and how I was able to bypass it, go ahead and check it out. The link is given in the description, as well as you can see it at the right side of the screen. And now, with that being said, let us get started. Okay, so before we proceed further, there are three things that we need to take care of. Basically three things that we need to understand. Okay, the first thing is LM Studio, which is basically a user interface from where we are going to interact with our local models. Okay, that LM Studio can be used to connect with various other tools through the MCP protocol, and our local language model can interact with that tools or those tools as well. Okay, the second thing is MCP, which is known as Model Context Protocol. It is a way through which we can aware the local LLM or the LLM about the tools that we want to integrate. Okay, for example, let's say that I want my local LLM to add a number. Okay, so what I can do is I can create like a function or like a tool where we are going to add two numbers. We're going to give some context of what that tool is going to do, and then we're going to connect that MCP server to the LLM or using to the LLM using LM Studio. Okay, and then if you're going to give it a prompt that add 2 plus 2 or something like that, so instead of just replying directly, it will understand that okay, I need to call this tool first, analyze the output, and then tell the response. So that way it will be able to call the tools, which is what we're going to be using in order to create like some sort of AI agent which is going to do automation or pen testing automation for us. Okay, the third thing is a suitable local large language model. Okay, now we can go with any model that you want, but for starters, if you have a little less resource based machine, you can go with 8 billion parameters, or you can start with 4 billion parameters. Okay, if you have a more advanced machine, you can go with Quen models, which is what I'm going to show you right over here. But the method to connect any model is pretty much the same. Okay, so that's not going to be an issue at all. Now, with all of this being aside, let's try to go ahead and see that how we can integrate all of this to automate our pen testing stuff. Okay, so the very first thing that we're going to do is we're going to install LM Studio into our machine. Okay, and it's actually very simple. You can go to Google and type LM Studio. Okay, or you can just click on the link given in the description and you will be redirected to the main website. Okay, just click on this website lmstudio.ai, which is basically help you to run local LLM onto your machine without any issues, and then you're going to download the LM Studio for your particular platform, for your particular operating system. For example, in my case, I'm going to download this for the Mac version. In your case, you can go ahead and choose Windows or Linux. It supports both of these platforms. Okay, once you have it downloaded, install it into your machine. Okay, and open it, and you're going to see something like this. Okay, this is what it looks like when you have finally installed LM Studio into your machine. Okay, when we have LM Studio, the second thing that we need to do is we need to install a local LM for our particular use case. Right, in this particular video we are going to use our AI agent to find cross-site scripting vulnerabilities. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose a local LLM which is compatible with the resource I have on my Mac. Okay, and we can go ahead and click on this particular icon which is model search. Click over here, and here you can choose any of this model that you want to use. For example, you can go ahead and choose Gemma 3.1 billion parameter, Gemma 4 billion parameters, 2 billion parameters, depending on your machine. Okay, remember that the more parameters a model have, the more better it will be able to understand your context of the task. Okay, for example, there's one important thing that I would like to show you is that if you click on any of the models, you'll see that if the model seems to be a little larger, you'll see something like this, that it is likely too large to fit in your machine. Okay, so depending on your resource, you're going to choose the right model for you. For example, if I go ahead and choose this 4 billion parameter model, we'll see that it can be fully offloaded into my GPU. But then again, this is 4 billion parameters, so it won't perform that effectively. The ideal thing, or the ideal parameter that you should be using is either 7 billion or more than 7 billion parameters. For example, we can go ahead and choose Llama 3. Let me just show you here. Llama 3.2, Llama 3.1, 8 billion parameters. So these are the model that you can choose as well. Okay, if not, then you can simply go ahead, because for our use case we'll be using a thinking model, so you can go ahead and download Qwen 3. So these are all the models. You can simply go ahead and choose one of these models which is going to support in your case. In my case, I already have Qwen 3.59 billion parameter installed, but I'm going to see if there's any other model that I can use as well. Let's wait for a few seconds. You can see here is Qwen 3 vision model, Qwen 3 vision 8 billion parameter, right? Qwen 3 4 billion parameters. So these are all the models that supports thinking, which will be better if you want to perform cybersecurity related stuffs. Okay, in my case, I'm going to go with Qwen 3.59 billion parameter, as it has been already installed into my machine. We're simply going to click on use in new chat. In your case, you're going to click on download button. Okay, and then you'll be clicking on use in new chat. Just click on use in new chat. You can see the model has been loaded over here. Okay, and if I go ahead and type something, for example, hi, hit enter, and now it started the thinking process, and you can see it is trying to analyze what we have given, and then it will return back the output for us, right? So let's wait for a few seconds, and I'll get back to you once I have got some kind of reply from this model. Okay, so before proceeding further, we would like to first create an MCP server so that we can connect that MCP server with our tool, right? And that's what we are going to do over here, right? And as I've already told you what MCP server is, basically it's a protocol through which we can export a function or a tool to the LLM, and the LLM is going to understand everything about that tool. Okay, when to call that tool, when to not call that tool, what the tool is expecting, what the tool is going to return, and so on and so forth. Okay, and in this particular example, since we are going to create like an AI agent which is going to help us in identifying cross-site scripting vulnerabilities, right? So we will be giving access to the LLM of our whole cell, okay, of our whole shell terminal, okay, and that's what this server is doing. So let me just show you what this server is, and also I'm going to attach the link of this server into the description so that you guys can simply just copy it and use it as per your need. Okay, you can see here is the tool that we are exporting. Let me just show you. This is the tool. Okay, this is the tool which is execute command, and this is the description given to it, and using this description it will understand that okay, what this tool is doing. Okay, and if you scroll down, you can see that it is executing shell commands, and then it is just giving out the output in JSON format. Okay, and this is how this particular MCP server is running. Right now, this is very simple actually. Once we have this server set up, we simply need to go ahead and execute this. We're going to type node server.js. We'll wait a few seconds, and as you can see, the server has been successfully started, right? And now we can simply go ahead and connect the server with our LLM. So let's go ahead and see how we can do that. Okay, so now the final thing that we need to do over here is to connect our light LLM with the MCP tool, right? And it's actually very simple of how we are going to connect to it. You can click on this integration icon, okay, this hammer icon, click here, and then you're going to click on this plus option. Okay, click on edit mcp.json. Okay, and here you need to provide the URL of where your MCP server is. For example, if you go all the way here, you can see that the MCP server is running at this particular address, and this here is my public IP address. Right now, if you're running your MCP server locally, you just need to provide your local IP address over here. You can just find it from executing commands like ifconfig in MacBook, or in Windows you can type ipconfig and you'll get the IP address. Right, once you have that, you can simply go ahead and connect with it. You can click on this hammer icon again, and you'll see the MCP server over here. Just click on enable, and this is pretty much it. Okay, now once we have this enabled, to verify whether our tool is working fine or not, whether the MCP has been connected with our LM Studio or not, what we can do is we can simply go ahead and type can you execute whoami command with the MCP tool exported to you. Let's do that. Hit enter. Let's wait for a few seconds, and let's see whether it's going to do that or not. So you can see that it was able to find the execute command function. It will ask for the tool call. You can see it's trying to execute this command, whoami. Let's proceed, and the command has been successfully executed, and this confirms that the tool is the MCP tool has been successfully connected with LM Studio, right? And now we're pretty much good to go. So let's try to go ahead and see that how we can finally use this whole thing to find a cross-site scripting vulnerability. Okay, so this is the target that we're going to test for XSS vulnerability, and as you can see, this is a legit web application, right? And we'll try to see whether our tool will be able to find XSS or not. Okay, I mean, technically we can give this model find any kind of vulnerability that we want, but it's safer to go with cross-site scripting first, right? So we'll simply go ahead and copy the URL. Okay, then we'll go here, we'll create like a new chat, and here we are simply going to paste the prompt. This is a prompt that I'm using over here. And now one more thing is that over here I'm using Qwen 3 8 billion parameter model, because the 3.5 has some kind of restrictions, and we need to like create a more advanced system prompt to in order to bypass that and all sort of thing, and I don't want to do that. So you can go ahead and use this Qwen 3 8 billion parameter model. It works just as good. Okay, and you can see this is the system prompt that I'm giving this particular model, right? Which is that you are an expert at finding this vulnerability. For all the given target, you need to send the request. You first need to verify whether the parameter is reflecting or not. If it is reflecting, then you can go ahead and try to use some kind of payload like imgsrc script and all sort of things, and then you need to verify whether this payload is getting reflected or not. If it is getting reflected, then it's a cross-site scripting vulnerability. If not, then we need to try something else. Okay, we need to check what went wrong basically. It has access to the execute command, which is the MCP tool that we have exported to this LLM, right? Which can execute any system command. And I've also mentioned that you should execute curl, grep, etc. to just send the request and find the string in the response, right? And all sort of things. And here's the target, and then attempt to find XSS vulnerability in the title parameter, right? Now we can simply go ahead and hit enter just like this. Okay, and now I'll get back to you once everything is done so that we can see whether it was able to find the vulnerability or not. Okay, so as you can see, the scan has finally been completed, and we can see all the result here that it was able to find the vulnerability, right? It says that the target was vulnerable to stored XSS. Okay, let's see what it thought. So first it sent the request to this target, then it checked whether the value is getting reflected or not, and then here is the second thought. Then it tried to use the payload, and then it saw whether the payload is getting reflected or not, and then finally it saw that okay, the tool response that the payload is present in the output, and it was able to find the vulnerability. Right now, obviously, since these are local models and having way less parameters compared to the frontier models on the internet, you need to explain many things to these particular models, right? But this is the most interesting part, right? Because if you're going to use these particular models, you need to understand how AI works at its core, because sometimes you might need to give it more direction of how everything is working. You need to break down the steps like I did. You need to create something known as chain of thought prompts and react prompts and all kind of things, so that the LLM will understand that okay, how to test for this particular vulnerabilities, so on and so forth. If you want to go very advanced into this, you can try to find your own particular model, which is something that I have already covered. If you want, you can check out the video as well. I'm going to attach that into the pinned comment so you can have a look at that, right? But more or less, this is how you can use these particular local models to find interesting vulnerabilities, right? Let's try to verify what it has found. So here is the payload. So it's saying that in the title you can add the script, right? We'll copy this, we'll paste it right over here. Let me just append it right here. Let's hit enter, and as you can see, alert 1, everything is working fine, which means that this particular application was indeed vulnerable to cross-site scripting vulnerability, right? It was able to create this interesting report as well. Another thing is that this particular model got a little confused because this is a reflected XSS, not a stored one. But you can't expect everything from a smaller model, right? You need to give it more direction of what stored XSS is and all those things, and I am personally a big fan of these local models instead of the frontier models on the internet, because I actually believe that this is something that's going to be the actual future. Okay, let me know what you guys think, and I hope you guys have learned something new from this particular video. If you have any doubts, if you have any issues, just feel free to let me know doubts or issues in the comment section. And now, with that being said, keep learning, keep hacking, and thank you so much for watching this video.